Welcome to Shadow of Truth with your host, Dave Kranzler from InvestmentResearchDynamics.com and Rory Hall from thedailycoin.org. And today is Monday, February 20th, 2017. Dave, what's going on?
Well, still trying to recover from my short trip to Iceland, but I can announce confidently that for any of the preppers out there who are looking for a place to hide from what's coming, Iceland would be a great place to do it if you can deal with the weather.
Well, I can't deal with the weather, so that counts me out.
Yeah, probably me too.
It's been a few weeks, so we've got a lot to talk about and a lot of gold action going on. So we say we talk about some gold.
Let's get ready to rumble.
It's a cool place, man. It's very mellow. I can't imagine. I have to imagine the crime rate is really low there. I mean, there's only 330,000 people who live there.
Yeah, and they threw out the banksters.
Well, I'm sure a new group has moved in, but
not yet. I mean, they're holding their own.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I didn't really delve into that there.
Yeah,
the banksters are always gonna, until we get rid of fiat currency, the banksters are always gonna control things.
It's unfortunate, but
it gets back to the Mayor Rothschild quote, you know.
Yep.
So, and that's what it is. And right now, the central banks have control of the money supply, and the big banks. The too big to fails they're just agents, you know. They're the fingers for the central banks, the fingers and arms of the central banks.
Yeah, I described them in a recent article as street corner criminals because that's what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the
capos.
Exactly, it's exactly it. Brown shirts, whatever you want to call them. I mean, they can cut them off and wipe them out at a whim, just like what we've seen with Bear Stearns.
Right, and they just, a new group of guys will fill in.
Yep.
I mean, it's because the nerve center, the BIS, and the central bankers, they know that greed motivates most people.
I hate them all.
Once you've seen it from the inside and you step outside of it, then you really appreciate just how corrupt it is. When you see it firsthand and you're part of it, it's like, holy. And I was there in the 90s. It's way worse now. There was at least some semblance of rule of law. You know, the back office people and the risk control people and the people in the banks that were in charge of enforcing regulations or making sure the regulations were adhered to. They at least made an effort. Now they don't even make an effort.
No, they're in collusion with them.
Right, exactly. I mean, and I could even see it happening, especially as the mid 90s turned into the late 90s. I could see it happening with what I would call sort of the regulation enforcement people inside the bank and the back office people. I mean, you could kind of get the back office people to help you hide positions. And then eventually the rule enforcement people realized that the size of their bonus was based on how well we did. And so the more they laid off of us, the better we did.
And the bigger their bonus.
And now it's just a free-for-all. I mean, it's just
out of control.
Yeah.
I mean, and this really gets to part of what I wanted to talk about, Dave, as far as what is truth. Everything is so skewed at this point, we don't even know what the truth is anymore. I mean, because all the markets are rigged, all the statistics are, quote, massaged, all of the information that's coming through the mainstream media and some of the bigger websites like Zero Hedge in particular, they pull, if you look at their original material, they're always quoting somebody from the mainstream media, CNN, USA Today, Reuters, pick one, Market Watch, it doesn't matter. So even that information is jacked up from in my opinion, I mean, and I wrote about this over the weekend. I mean, there's nothing that we can point to and say, yes, that's absolute truth. And I mean, or am I crazy in thinking that?
No, I mean, Zero Hedge, I think Zero Hedge still presents a lot of truth. I
No,
mean,
I agree.
and I think, like a lot of times Reuters isn't pure fake news the way CNN is.
Yes.
So there's, it's a little, you need to use a little bit of judgment to figure out when Reuters is reporting the straight news and when they're reporting biased propaganda. But I mean, Bloomberg, forget Fox Business and CNBC. They're so far gone down the rabbit hole. But Bloomberg, I mean, they were kind of the last ones to head down the rabbit hole. And I was watching it this morning, and they had this anti-gold news reporting. On the right-hand side, they have a news scroll. It was talking about how the gold bugs aren't appreciating the fact that Janet Yellen can't control the price of gold right now, and everyone thought when the Fed would start raising interest rates, it would be bad for gold. Well, they're not reporting facts there, because studies have shown that since 1971, more often than not, when the Fed goes into a rate hike cycle, it's positive for gold. In fact, gold does better in rate hike cycles.
Yes. And the question that I have is that what does Janet Yellen have to do with the price of gold?
Yeah, why is Bloomberg even suggesting that she should trying to be controlling the price of gold?
Exactly.
What gives there?
Right.
Why does anyone care about gold? Remember, it's a barbarous relic. It just sits there. It doesn't do anything. So why are all these financial mainstream media news sources, why do they report anti-gold propaganda? Why does anyone care about it? Why report on it at all? If
it's just
the fact
tradition.
that they're reporting on it even negatively tells you how important gold is to the system.
Exactly. I mean, it's huge. I mean, in Greenspan, I'm sure you've seen over the past, I think it was mid to late last week, he came out and made some more comments about gold and the importance.
Oh, I didn't see those.
Gold.
What did he say?
Oh my God! Hold on a minute, because I've got it.
I saw
wrote
a replay.
About it. Yeah.
I saw a replay of that speech he gave to the Council of Foreign Relations, where he talks about gold, and that was the one that really surprised everyone, because all of a sudden, he sounded like his 1966 essay, "Gold and Economic Freedom."
Well, let me read this, and it'll stir the pot even more. This is a direct quote. Investment in gold now is insurance. It's not for short-term gain, but for long-term protection. Today, going back onto the gold standard would be perceived as an act of desperation. But if the gold standard were in place today, we would not have reached the situation in which we now find ourselves. That's a direct quote. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Hold on, it gets even better. This is another direct quote. We would never have reached this position of extreme indebtedness were we on the gold standard, because the gold standard is a way of ensuring that fiscal policy never gets out of line. There is a widespread view that the 19th century gold standard didn't work. I think that's like wearing the wrong size shoes and saying the shoes are uncomfortable. It wasn't the gold standard that failed. It was politics. Hello?
Can you send me that link?
It's on my website.
Oh, okay.
Its title is "Why Do All Developed Countries Have Gold Reserves?" And I've included that Council for Foreign Relations video in this article as well, because that was a huge turning point. And this is even further. I mean, makes those statements look like nothing, in my opinion. I mean, it's just incredible that he's coming out and making these statements where people can hear him.
Do you know where was he giving that speech?
Oh, it's to the World Gold Council.
Well, to circle back, you wanted to know, what's true. How do we know what's true anymore?
Yep.
All right. Well, I just happened to see this headline. German minister calls for Greece to pledge gold and real estate for new loans. Isn't that interesting?
I thought gold was a barbarous relic, a tradition. It's not money.
Yeah, why would they care about gold? Why did all of a sudden Germany? Now, I don't believe that they got all their physical gold sitting in Germany. The gold that they were trying to repatriate, it wasn't all of it, but the gold that they wanted to repatriate from the Fed, I don't believe it's all there. I'd want to see that with my own eyes, and I don't know of or read of anyone who's actually seen that gold sitting there.
Well, until Peter Boehringer comes out and says, yes, we have the assays, we've seen the bars, it's there, I don't believe any of it. I don't believe they have anything except another line item on a ledger sheet.
Right, exactly. But, now, I mean, the typical lending mechanism from the ECB to the member countries is the governments issue debt, and then they pledge, and then they basically, that debt is used to securitize new loans from the ECB. And now all of a sudden the loans aren't any good. They want to have gold and real estate.
Gold and real estate. Let's see. What do those have in common?
Why
they're
not pledge
real.
the Parthenon? Oh, maybe
Well,
that's already leveraged up.
Exactly. That, along with their rail system, their water system, a bunch of the islands, if not all the islands.
Right.
J.P. Morgan's got all that. It's just incredible. I mean, don't you remember Max Kaiser, I think it was in Greece and ran into Steve Forbes, and they apparently, this was been several years ago, all the banksters were there meeting to decide how they were going to divvy up all the prize. Who gets what?
I didn't. I have not been paying a ton of attention to the news, other than the economic numbers that I've been delving into to write my short sellers journal.
How's that coming?
Good. I mean, the retail sales report that came out last week, everyone got all jiggy about that, and the truth is, it was all driven by energy inflation. If you strip inflation out of the numbers, and these are Census Bureau guesstimates, most of it. But if you strip inflation out of their guesstimates, retail sales fell from December to January.
Well, they had to. I mean, that was from December to January. I mean, I thought that had already been reported as being terrible.
Well, it was suggested that it was a bad month based on numbers that the actual retailers were reporting, but all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the government comes out and says, "Hey, retail sales in January were great."
Okay. And that goes back to where we were a minute ago. What's real and what's not. I mean,
well, and again, they're attributing, if you look through the individual line items, gasoline sales were by far, if you took gasoline sales out alone, the retail sales probably would have been negative. But that contradicts, unless it was all price driven for gasoline sales, which I'm not sure it was. I don't recall that gasoline prices here were up 13% in January, but they might have been. But they're now, if they're saying, well, gasoline sales by volume increased, and that flies in the face of the research report that Goldman Sachs put out that said there was a stunning, unexpected drop in gasoline sales in December and January. And it's the type of drop that you would associate with a recession.
I did see that. It's just, where do they come up with this stuff? I mean,
well, it's the Census Bureau, and they don't report the truth. They report what they want you to believe is the truth. And then when the headline is reported, that becomes the truth, because then that's what is used as the talking points on all the mainstream media.
Right.
And if, a lot of people, well, I don't know, I think less and less people this is true for, but when they, when they start seeing headlines and everyone talking about it and all these so-called experts on TV talking about it, it's like, oh, well, that's the number. And that becomes, when that number becomes the talking point, it's kind of like you repeat a lie enough times, eventually people come to believe it. And that's what it is. It's the same model.
It's worked well for a long time now, but I think that people are finally starting to wake up en masse. I really do. I mean, I think that people are in general pretty sick of the mainstream media, and I think that they're very cautious of everything that's being reported. I mean, because Trump has his own way of addressing it, and I'm sure you saw that press conference last week where he called Bob Acosta or whatever, that dude from CNN, I've upgraded you from fake news to very fake news. And I mean, and that's when people hear the president, love him, hate him, whatever, doesn't matter. When they hear that enough times, just like what you just said, if something is repeated enough, it becomes truth. And if he continues to tweet and repeat that line, that will become what people come to understand. And fortunately, it is the truth. That's what this whole conversation's been about, is what the truth is and what the truth isn't. I mean, and when you've got a room full of talking head prostitute media staring you in the face, and you're telling them right to their face that you are the enemy of the American people, that's got to get somebody's attention. Well, where do we go from here, Dave?
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know about you, but I think we can probably tie this up. I think, especially in the last several days, it's become apparent to me that the central banks seem to stand more in fear of gold, and the fact that we're seeing all this negative propaganda about it tells me that, if it wasn't important, then they wouldn't be reporting on it at all, positively or negatively. So we're seeing all this negative propaganda, and perhaps to me the most interesting thing that's happened in the last week, because the Trump story is starting to get a little old, in my opinion. It is what it is the fact that Greenspan gave this interview in the World Gold Council magazine.
Yep.
And he made these statements about gold. I mean, it's almost paraphrases from his Golden Economic Freedom essay in 1966, and he's kind of come full circle from being a gold proponent to being a fiat currency corrupt central banker, and now all of a sudden, maybe he's trying to save his legacy or something, because he's a smart guy and he knows where this is going. He's way smarter than Bernanke or Yellen.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah. And I can remember specifically him giving testimonials before Congress, and Ron Paul would start grilling him about gold, and he would be adamant that, a disciplined central bank behaves just the way a gold standard does. And obviously he doesn't believe that anymore. And to me, that's amazing news right now. And it's going to be, no one's going to report it in the mainstream media, but to me, that's incredibly significant.
I agree. I think that once again, it goes back to, and you have to remember the interview that he did with the Council for Foreign Relations was in October of 2014. So this is full 2.5 years later that he's making these statements that are even stronger at this point. And in light of what you said a minute ago about Janet Yellen having something to do with the gold price and that being reported on Bloomberg, they're scared to death right now. That's what it sounds like anyway. They're trying to offset his comments that are racing through the internet news, internet only news, and trying to offset that wildfire. Because it's been pretty widely reported. Not on mainstream, of course, but
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't really connect. All of a sudden I'm seeing this Bloomberg anti-gold propaganda. It's like, where's this coming from? What do they care?
yeah,
You're right. It probably is sort of to counterbalance these comments from Greenspan.
they have to be.
Very interesting observation.
I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, once again, what does Janet Yellen have to do with the price of gold other than to confirm everything that GATA has been telling us for the past almost 20 years? I mean, they're at every turn, every time these people open their mouth, they confirm everything that we have known for the past 2 decades.
Yeah,
Pretty
amazing.
awesome. Oh, well, I guess that's the goodest place to end it, Dave. So I'm glad we're back on air and glad you're back home. I'm back home. Everybody's home. So we'll pick it up on Thursday and make something else happen.
That sounds good to me.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.